And there we go. Now, for you've all been with me, I think, before at least once or twice, and you know that I love questions and I love comments. So I'm going to ask for a lot of interaction. The more you play with me in my sandbox, the more I will come to life and the more information you'll get out of me. This is kind of one of those Pavlovian experiences where you tickle my fancy and I give you lots. All right, so here we are. We are ready to start now, and let us get going. I'm going to begin by asking you, if it's at all possible, as long as you're not watching this on your cell phone, would you do me a favor and turn off whatever distractions you can? So you see, I've actually just put mine into airplane mode. Love my mother dearly. She lives about an hour and a half away. She typically calls me right in the middle of a class. And so rather than having that disturb us, we're going to let that go to voicemail if she does call tonight, and I can call her back later. I'm just encouraging you to turn this off because we're going to talk about iridology. We're going to do some business building tips as well. I'm going to share with you information about the iridology course that is coming up. So now what I need to know is, are you ready? Are you ready to go? I want you to let me know in the chat box. I'm going to tell you we're a small group. By the time we get to this particular webinar, we've sifted out people who are not ready to even think about taking the iridology course now. So we're a small group. So I'm really going to be leaning on you heavily to help me stay excited tonight. Are you ready? Should we get going? Yes. Thank you, Tracy. Ready with a smile. And Dawn says, yes, thank you so much. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So tonight we are talking about iridology and your health coaching business. Have either of you learned any iridology at any kind of a level where you could use it in a clinic? And there are 2 of you on the call with me tonight. So we are a small group, and that's not going to be awkward. We are just going to have a ton of fun. And Dawn says, not at all. Fabulous. And Tracy has not either. Okay, great. Well, here we go, because we are going to also, like I said, give you 4 specific business strategies so that you can use regardless of what your holistic health practice business is. If it's something where you're coaching people and you're giving them instructions and educating them, these are tips that will help you no matter who you are working with. And again, I do like to tweak my presentations on the fly, so I'm open to questions and comments and input from you. And if we take little side trips, I am golden with that. So, oh, and we have Luz joining us tonight. Hi, Luz, good to see you. We saw you last night, met you last night. So this is a lot of fun. Thank you for being here. So tonight, I want to know in the comments, if any of these things are things that you would like to have, that you'd like to learn how to improve. Do you want to learn how to have your confidence boosted for your holistic health practice? Do you want to get some tips on how to keep your client sessions running on time? Do you want to learn how you can actually free up time by getting your client programs developed in your paid client sessions instead of working overtime to get them done? Do any of those sound like something that you would like to get some information on tonight? Yes, says Luz. Excellent. And so does Dawn. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And Tracy says absolutely great. Then we're going to have fun tonight. So if we're going to fix the problems, and I'm calling those problems, and that's maybe a little bit harsh, but if we're going to fix the problems, we really have to identify the problems first. Those are actually just symptoms of a problem. And so we're going to take a look after we have looked at the problems and some solutions, and we're going to look at how iridology can help you with all of those. So here's problem number 1. How confident do you feel when you're with a client? Do you have the confidence to make recommendations right then and there in their appointments with you? Do you sometimes experience imposter syndrome? You know, where you've got that voice in the back of your head that is saying things like, what makes you think you can do any good here? Who says you know enough to help people? You ever have that? If that's you, I'd like to see a 1 in the comments box. We are going to circle back and talk about this in a few minutes, and I'm going to give you some steps, okay? Okay, I love that you are being vulnerable and that you're playing with me here. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to circle back to this problem in a few minutes, and I'm going to start giving, or I'm going to give you, and I'm going to start just going to give you some things that you can do to actually begin turning this around in your very next appointment. But let's look at 3 more problems first, because these are super common. How many unpaid hours do you spend per client doing research for them and creating programs for them? So you see your client for the first time, and then you go off and you do however much research to put together a program, and then you bring it back to your client. How many hours do you spend doing research? I want to see some numbers here. When I was new at this and before I learned how to use constitutional iridology, I used to donate 3 to 4 hours of my time for every 1 paid client hour. So how many hours do you take to create a client program that you're not getting paid for? I had one person admit that she spent 20 hours. 20. So if you're anything under 20, you're fine. But I'm going to teach you how to reduce that. How many hours do you spend? You want to share that with me in that chat box? I mean, we're being kind of vulnerable. We're a nice, tight little group here. That makes it a little easier, a little more comfortable. But while you're giving me that number, do you know of any other profession that donates time for free? Okay, so let's run through some. Your dentist. Does he just give you his time for free? What about your massage therapist? Mine charges for 50 minutes, 50 minutes, right? A massage hour is actually 50 minutes, right? My physiotherapist charges for every time I step into his office. My accountant charges for everything, right? And so do you know any other professions who give their time away for free? I've heard that real estate brokers do. You know, they give their time away in the hopes that they're going to make a sale. But that's sort of an outlier because they are working on sales, right? For those of us who work one-on-one in a health profession, I don't know anyone who gives their time routinely away for free. So do you do this? Maybe just give me a yes if you do this. Do you donate your own time to create client programs? Or do you actually charge enough? Like I'm talking like $100 an hour for every hour you spend for your client. Yeah, you actually donate time, Dawn. Thanks for being honest. That's a hard one, right? Because none of us wants to admit that that's happening, but it's true. Tracy says, I don't have a practice, but do manage health food stores where we do many one-on-one consultations with clients, several hours a week, I would say I spend, and I can only imagine for someone with a practice and regular clients. Absolutely, Tracy. Absolutely. And probably give way more time away in a health food store because, you know, you're spending 15 or 20 or 30 minutes with them creating a program and they're buying one little $10 or $15 bottle of vitamins, right? Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with us, Tracy. Appreciate that. Problem number 3. You're frustrated with constantly having to find new clients. Now, again, Tracy, might not really apply in a health food situation. Maybe it does if you actually have a vested interest in the health food store. But I want to ask you then, what do you do? What have you tried for finding new clients? I've done trade shows. I had a year where we found all the trade shows within about a 2-hour radius of Calgary. And we've got a lot of little towns around here that love to do their little community trade shows. So for that year, I did about 2 or 3 trade shows every weekend, starting in the spring right through the fall. It was a hard year. Here's what I found out about myself. And I think this is true for many of us who are holistic practitioners. And that is, many of us are introverts, which is why we do what we do, because we really love connecting with people one-on-one, heart to heart. We love having that rapport with people. I found that year that we did trade shows looking for new clients and places to teach classes and whatnot was so hard. I learned I don't do big groups well. I don't do big groups where I have to be breaking the ice. I can teach to a face-to-face group of 500, That's my joy. I love teaching, and the bigger the audience, the better. But put me in a trade show situation where I'm having to try to draw people into a booth, and it just about did me in. I've also tried giving free lectures. And what I realized with doing free lectures is this. I've now learned that they are simply a donation. So I'm happy to do free lectures for not-for-profit organizations, but out of all of the decades that I've been in this business that I've done free workshops, I have picked up one, count it, one new client. So I consider all of that time just a donation for the benefit of that not-for-profit organization. I've also tried flyers. Have you tried flyers? Have you tried doing flyers yet, around where your office is or things like that? Have you? I want to know if you have or not. Here's what I found with flyers. I knew the statistics going in, and I thought, and Dawn hasn't. Dawn, you're smart. Don't do flyers. And here's why I say that is because the marketing rule of thumb is you have to deliver the exact same message to the exact same address up to 7 times at 2-week intervals. So this is taking you months to do to get a 1 to 2% return. So I did the experiment. I printed them up on my photocopier, and every Saturday morning for a couple of months, I went for my morning run, and I was running to deliver these flyers before I opened the clinic. And you know what? I got this many calls. I've learned a lot about marketing since then, but I will tell you, flyers are not a high rate of return. So the real question here is, why do we have to constantly be finding new clients anyways? Why are our clients not coming back as long-term repeat clients? What are we doing? What's going on, and what can we do about it? Because wouldn't it be nicer? Tell me this, would you like to have clients who come back to you, maybe not every month, but they come back a few times, and then maybe they fade off for a little while to do their own thing, and then they come back a few years later for a few appointments, and they keep doing that for years and years and years? Would you like to have repeat clients who keep coming back to you? Give me a yes or a no. And whatever your answer is fine by me. Lou says yes, she would like that. And Dawn says yes. And I'll bet that even for the health food store, repeat clients are good for business, right? Right. And so, yeah, Tracy says yes, absolutely. So, I've got a ton of clients who've been with me for 5 to 10 years, and I've got a lot who have been with me for 30 to 38 years. And they disappear for a few years, and then they come back because they got older and their body is falling apart a little bit more and they need some more help. And so I'm going to show you how you can make that work. We're going to circle back to this again in a few minutes. I'm going to give you some tips on how to make your clients want to keep coming back to see you over and over again. Now, this is also a really huge problem. This problem number 4 that says, your business is not being quite as successful as you want it to be or need it to be. And you have that little voice in the back of your head that keeps saying, just get a real job. You should just quit this and get a real job. Have you had that voice in your head? I know I did. I had that. Didn't like it either. I kept trying to make it be quiet, and it took doing the right things to make it go away. So with all these problems, these are super common problems, and virtually every holistic practitioner that I know suffers from, and suffers is the right word, some, if not all, of these problems at one time. And I want you to know that this is actually very normal. It's not necessarily good, but it is normal. And we're going to take a look at what we can do about these things. Just before we do that, I have a little gift for you tonight, and we're going to talk about this gift and how it can help you later on in our time together. And it's a little document. It's a template that will actually help you to change the way you the way you work with your clients. And you can use it starting as soon as we press end tonight. If you've got a late evening client, this document is going to help you stop giving away your time for free. And it's going to help you start creating long-term repeat clients. And all of that is going to start boosting your confidence, and it's going to kill that voice in your brain that says you should get a real job. Sound good? So what I want to know now, if that sounds good, I want to know if you're planning on staying till the end of the webinar to get this little document. If you are, give me an I'm staying in the comments. Yeah, you plan to stay? Thanks, Dawn. Awesome. And Tracy says yes too. Fabulous. And Luz, yes, thanks. I appreciate that. So here's the real problem. The real problem, if those are things that you suffer with, any of them, even just one of them, the real problem is the way you were taught to create nutrition programs or herbal programs or holistic health programs in school doesn't work. It sucks up your time, it eats up your energy, and it kills your dreams. And I'll tell you, that's exactly where I was when I started having problems, when I recognized I had a problem. Kind of like, it's Entrepreneurs Anonymous. I've got a problem, and I'm not making light of AA. I think that's a really brilliant, serious problem, but I think there should be an EA for entrepreneurs who are struggling and need some extra support. So the dream that I had that this was all sucking out of me was I wanted to have a happily full appointment book. I wanted to be able to get home for my kids' soccer games, or I wanted to be able to volunteer in their schools or things like that whenever they needed me. I wanted that flexibility. I wanted to help my clients feel successful because they were working with me. And I wanted my clients to feel like that they were getting the very best they would ever get, and that if they didn't keep coming back to work with me, they were missing out on an opportunity, the best opportunity to really up their wellness game. And I wanted to feel successful. Does that sound like things that you want in your practice and in your work? Are those things that you want? To have a happily full appointment book, to be able to have the life you choose, whether you've got children or not, to spend time with family, or to volunteer, or to have a vacation, get a massage once in a while. Yeah, thanks, Luz. I appreciate that you agree that these are some of the things that you want too. And I really want my clients to feel successful, because that is what makes them want to come back. So just before we launch into this full steam ahead, this is my lab. This is me. This is me and my wonderful sweetheart. We've been married for coming up to 41 years this summer. We have 7 children. We could play guess which ones are ours in here, but in all honesty, my perspective is the 5 adults in this picture who I did not birth are also my children. They're my children from another mother. So we've got 7 children, 5 children from another mother, and 8 grandchildren. And I grew my business while this tribe was growing. I started in this industry soon after my husband and I got married. I was blessed with the opportunity to work with another herbalist iridologist. And by the time we were on to, we had baby number 1, and she was gracious enough to let me bring baby number 1 to work with me. By the time we got to baby number 2 and I was halfway through, it was like, I got to leave here. I got to be on my own. I can't bring 2 babies to work. And she agreed. So I went off on my own. She sent me a few clients to get me started. And that was great. But what I learned was that, that it was a bit of a challenge, because I was doing this often with that many kids, with a nursing baby in my arms. I taught face-to-face classes, and I would take my nursing babies with me. I would have my nursing baby in my office with me. My clients would always want to hold that little baby, and that was fine. I was okay with that. And so I know from all this how busy we can get. maybe like the stage of life I'm at now, I have an aging mother to take care of and an aging mother-in-law that we're involved with, plus all of the extra demands that children and grandchildren place on us. And we're still busy. Plus I have my business and I have my own interests, right? And you're probably the same. You've probably got things in your life that are really important to you. And you're wondering, how do I really make this work? How do I stop giving away time, increase my income, and have a life as well? So what's important here is that you are learning from someone who's studied several different holistic health disciplines: herbology, nutrition, flower essences, aromatherapy, EFT, Vitaflex, biokinesiology, 3 different styles of iridology. And I will tell you that in all of those courses and all of that learning, I didn't always accept everything that I was taught. I tested it, I tried it, proved it, and if it didn't work for me in my clinic, then I turfed it. If it worked beautifully, I kept it. And I think that's wise for all of us to do that, to not just accept things at face value. And that's especially true when it came to iridology, because all 3 of the different styles that I learned, vastly different. The first one, I finally I totally walked away from it because it just didn't work. I know too that many of us work under strict government guidelines or professional association guidelines for scope of practice. And most of us are not allowed to diagnose and prescribe. Is that right? Are you allowed to diagnose and prescribe with the training that you currently have? I'd like to see a yes or a no in the chat box. Are you allowed to diagnose and prescribe? No and no. Yeah. Excellent. So what I have found is that we need to have tools that help us stay within that scope of practice, because none of us here on this call right now are allowed to diagnose or prescribe. And I've got a lot of grads who we're going to hear from some of them, see their testimonials later, and they will share with you how learning iridology dynamic iridology, the way we teach it, has really changed their practice. But going back 35 years, I was struggling. I was putting in way too much overtime creating those client programs. I was tired. We had our first 2 kids and we were expecting our third. The oldest was only 4. I was depleted. I was passionless. I was starting to really resent my business. And I was overwhelmed with trying to get my client programs designed. I believed back then, and I still believe now, that it's really important for me to make sure that every client has an individualized program. I don't believe in one-size-fits-all programs. How do you feel about that? Do you believe in having a template program that everybody gets on their first visit, like everybody gets a cleanse on the first appointment? Or do you like to, Dawn is agreeing with me, you like to customize and build according to what the client needs? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that I know from the work that I've done, and Luz agrees with that too. Thank you so much. I know from the work that I've done that I'm not the only one who has struggled like this, not by a long shot. And most of us struggle with this kind of overwhelm until we figure out how to manage it, or we end up walking away from what we think we want to do. Let me give you an example of how it used to play out decades ago. I would see a client for the first time. We'd meet for about an hour, but usually it would go like an hour and a half, and they would usually show up. I would ask them to come 15 minutes early to fill out the questionnaire, you know the one I mean. And they would usually come whipping in right at their appointment time to fill in this paperwork. Well, great. Now we're going to be 10 to 15 minutes late starting their actual appointment. But we would work with it the best we can. By the time we were at the end of that hour, I was nowhere near ready to cut them loose yet. I hadn't given them anything that they needed. So we'd usually go like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I never charged them for that extra time. I would give them a starting point. I would send them away. I would go and I would do my 3 or 4 hours of homework, and we'd have their next appointment scheduled. And usually the day before that next appointment, they would cancel. So I had just spent all that time creating this program for someone who wasn't coming back. Yeah. This happened over and over again. Sometimes they would come back and that was great, but probably over half the time they didn't. I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. I figured I had given them really good value for the money. I had given them 2 hours of my time and only charged for one. They didn't know I had just spent 3 or 4 hours creating this elaborate program for them, but it didn't matter because they didn't value what I was doing with them. And they didn't value it because I was giving it to them almost for free. So after a couple of years, does that sound familiar? After a couple of years, that thought started circling in the back of my brain that says, just get a real job. So I thought, okay, I used to do office work when I was in high school, and as summer jobs in university, I'll just go get an office job. So I actually went and applied as a receptionist. I had done sort of reception work through high school and university. And I did their typing test. Back then it was typing, not keyboarding. You were lucky if you got an electric typewriter back then. Okay, I've just dated myself. And what I discovered was a painful truth. Nobody wants a slow typist as a full-time hire. They'll give you a job as a summer student to fill in gaps, but if you're slow, they don't want you. So I learned from that I was completely unemployable. So from there, I had to take a step back and decide, what do I want to do with this? I loved the idea of holistic health. I'd always loved the idea of holistic health. I was raised in a medical model family, and even as a teenager, I thought differently from my parents and my siblings. I really thought differently. It's like, all right, I don't know who my real parents are, but I don't think these are them. And it was really bizarre because I wanted whole grain. I wanted fresh food, and they were happy with white bread and canned vegetables. And I was like, that didn't work for me. So I knew that I wanted to do something in the holistic world. Only we didn't even call it holistic back then. I think we were just calling it health food back then. I decided I needed to find a better way. I needed to make a decision, and I needed to change some things, because as a practitioner, giving away that much time is not a way to contribute meaningfully to the family income or to even make it worth taking the time away from my family. Right? If I'm going to take time away, it's got to be worth it somehow to my family. It's got to improve our life in some way, shape, or form. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So I started searching. And I took courses. And what I found, thank you, Luz, what I found was that most of the courses I took were standalone courses. They weren't meant to integrate anything. It was this set of knowledge that was all by itself, and it could work on its own, but to put it together with what I already knew was not going to be easy. Or the classes had the one-size-fits-all templates. All of your clients need this cleanse to start, and then in month 2 they're going to do this, and in month 3 they're going to do this. And I'm thinking, but I love working with pregnancy and infertility and little kids. I love working with young families and husbands and wives and all kinds of stuff. How can one size fit everybody? And it wasn't until, and so I learned Jensenian Iridology, and I was using it. But what really changed for me was when I decided that the North American Jensenian Iridology wasn't it. That what I'd been taught there wasn't working. And I didn't know why it wasn't working, but it wasn't working. And then as I was about to turn my back on iridology and say, well, chalk that up to experience, I was blessed with the opportunity to learn constitutional iridology. And as I started studying iridology, and back then my original classes, I should get these out one day, were actually VHS videotapes that I ordered from the people who brought constitutional iridology from Germany to North America. And these tapes were in English, thank goodness, because I don't speak German. And so my first training was these videotapes. And as I watched these videotapes, I found myself going, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, that makes sense. I get it now. This totally works. I get it. So the iridology made sense. But then I needed to find a way to be able to apply this in the clinic, to teach my clients what they needed to know so that we could take them to the next step. And I needed to create a system. And that is exactly what I've done with this. I use this to create a system that allows me to use the eyes to integrate the herbology and the nutrition. And if we want to do aromatherapy or flower essences or some EFT work, and it helps me to integrate everything I know. It helps me to create effective programs. And that's what I get so excited about teaching, is teaching practitioners how to use constitutional iridology, teaching them constitutional iridology and how to use it to create really, really doable wellness programs for their clients. Does that sound like something that would work for you? Would having that kind of a framework, that guide, not a hard and fast template, but a guide to help you keep your appointments on time, meet your clients' needs, and get things done? Yeah. Thank you, Luz. Thank you for that. So when I finally got this figured out, the solution was clear and easy. And I'm so glad that I decided to invest in learning that other style of iridology, that constitutional iridology, because it did allow me to move forward and create this program. Tracy's saying, love the tailored approach for individual clients. Absolutely. Absolutely. There are no two clients that leave my office with the same program. I could have two women with polycystic ovarian syndrome with menstrual cycles that look exactly the same when we chart them, and their temperatures look exactly the same. They are not leaving here with the same program because I use iridology to help tailor the program to the individual, right? And it's so quick and so easy when you know how to do it. So can you imagine this? Can you imagine being able to get your client programs designed right in your paid client sessions? How would that change the way you work your business? How would it change your life? How would it change your income? Can you give me some ideas of, I want you to take just a minute and think, if all of my client protocols could be created when I'm with that one client, I can design that protocol right then and there, and then send them off to work on it for a month and then have them come back so we can up notch it, up level a little bit. Dawn says it sounds interesting. Yeah. What would it do for you? Tell you what it does for me. It gave me some free time to actually be a mom. Now it gives me free time to be a grandma so I can babysit grandkids once in a while, or, you know, in the beautiful snow we've got, take them tobogganing or things like that. And that's a ton of fun. Lou says, sounds like a great idea. Yeah, and it is. Let me share with you what one of my graduates said. This is Karen Choate. She is a CNHP and she specializes as a natural digestive health specialist. And so, and then we're going to dive into some strategy work for you. She came to me already trained, beautifully trained with experience under her belt as a CNHP. She'd been in practice for several years, but even with that, she still struggled with and was a little frustrated because she couldn't always find the root of the client's problem. And she often had problems creating programs that were tight enough and laser focused enough and easy enough for her clients to actually stick with to get results. She would spend her own time creating programs, where have we heard that before, and doing research, but she knew her stuff cold. She got interested in iridology and she signed up for the course, the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System. And then she started sharing, about halfway through the course, she started sharing with me the effect that this was having on her and her clients. She said this specifically: now I've begun to implement this incredible work in my practice quite successfully. It has truly helped immensely in my decisions and assessments. I am definitely a much more confident nutritionist. That was cool. She told me privately that she was creating her programs in her appointments. So imagine for a minute that you don't have to do any unpaid homework, that you get all of your client programs done when you are in their paid client session and you're not working overtime. Imagine that you feel confident enough that you can create that program right on the spot and you know that it is a good program. Imagine you've freed up some time. What are you going to do with that free time? Is that time to see more clients and increase your income? Is it time to, like I said earlier, get a massage, have a life, babysit, travel, whatever? And imagine if your clients were having such raving success that they couldn't stop telling their friends about you and they were doing all of your advertising. Which one of those things do you want? I'd like to see which one of those things do you want? And if you want all four of them, that's okay. You can put down all four, all of them. Yes, Luz, thank you, right on. Because they all come as a package deal. When you use Iridology the way I teach it, this becomes the package deal. All right, so are you ready to learn how to begin even without Iridology turning some of these things around? Yeah, would you like that? Yes, thank you, Luz. Thank you so much. So I'm going to give you 4 very specific steps, and Tracy says for sure, 4 very specific steps that can give you back some time, can help you start creating that repeat business. And every one of these steps will work without Iridology. But I will assure you that you will, okay, this is a really bad analogy for a holistic group, but if you use Iridology the way I teach it, all of those changes are changed on steroids. Like they go off the chart and things really start to blossom. So here's what I know for sure. And this is exactly why I'm sharing this information with you tonight. And that's because it's been proven time and time again by my students who have gone on to have success. And this is it. The dynamic iridology assessment system is the strongest and simplest way to get control of your business and have the impacts that you want to have while putting you in complete control of your time and your money. Now, anytime during this web class, if you're thinking, holy moly, this is amazing and I want to dive deeper, I want the training and the mentoring. We're going to talk about what that looks like. I'm going to tell you at the end of this webinar how you can enroll and how you can actually have this for yourself. Because I'm here to support you in that. I'm here to help you build your professional confidence and help you to create the wellness and the coaching business that you've envisioned. So let's look at those 4 common problems. Stumbling block number 1. These problems contribute to the first 4 things we talked about. You fire hose your clients with too much information. Right? This is an important thing to recognize, and I want you to see if any of this sounds familiar, because I've seen this both in new practitioners and in very experienced practitioners. In school, we were not taught how to write client programs. We were taught how to write case studies. Right? We were given a description of a client who had a health concern. We took that description, we hit the books or the internet, depending on how old you are, researching and designing and crafting and writing to create a case study style program that contained all the information the client would need to take them from where they are now right through the rest of their life. And it was a lot. And because that is how you learned how to create a case study, that's likely how you create protocols now. And because of that, you don't think you know enough to create a program on the spot. Here's what happens. When you give your client that report, she feels overwhelmed or he feels overwhelmed, leaves your office looking like a deer in the headlights, might try to do the program and it might last for 36 hours. And then they throw their hands up in the air and go, I can't do this. It's too hard. Forget it. If this is what it takes to feel good, I guess I'm stuck feeling lousy. Here's the problem with that, is that when your client is not successful, they feel like a failure. When they can't follow your instructions, they feel like a failure. And 9 times out of 10, they're not going to come back and tell you they feel like a failure. They are just going to cancel the appointment. And so we need to find a way around that. Have you ever seen that look on one of your clients' faces, that look that says, you're asking me to do what? And exactly how do you think I'm going to make that happen? Have you ever seen that? I used to see it all the time. It's no wonder my clients didn't come back. Here's the hard truth. When you fire hose your clients with too much information, you have successfully made their appointment, their health, and their program all about you, all about your insecurities, and all about your need to be right. Ouch. So here's the solution. This is hard. When you're used to writing case studies, this is really hard. Chunk it down. Less is more. This means that what you need to recognize is your client doesn't actually need to know, and they don't even want to know everything that you know. And they are starting from a place way far back, usually from where you are. And so things that you think are simple may be monumental for them. I was speaking with a client today, and as we looked at her health issues, and she hasn't sent me iPhotos yet. I just sent her the video on how to get her own iPhotos so she can actually send me photos. But as she described her symptoms and we talked about her diet, she drinks 1 cup of Americano coffee every day. I have no idea what that is because I don't drink coffee. But that is one of the things that has to go. And as I said, how do you feel about letting go of the Americano? The look on her face was, and then she said, but I've already reduced it from about 4 a day. And I said, that is brilliant. You've done a great job. How about if we wean it down slowly? So over the month, your Americanos get smaller and smaller and smaller. And let's replace it with, and I gave her a couple of ideas of what to replace it with. And I watched her face go from the to the, oh, that actually sounds good. I could do that. And so that was fabulous. So she didn't need to, we did one other dietary change with her, which was she should not be eating raw food right now. She needs everything lightly cooked. And we introduced a couple of vitamins. That was her entire first appointment. And I'm expecting to see about a 25% improvement, if not more, in her symptoms over the course of the next month. So we need to chunk it down and give it to them in very manageable steps, 1 or 2 steps at a time. Because when they do that, you know what results to expect if they can do that homework. You know how much better they'll feel if they can do the homework. So if you restrict the homework to exactly and precisely something that they can do and can be highly successful with, then at their next appointment, they're going to want to come and say, I did it. I got rid of the Americano and I love the substitutes you taught me about. This is amazing. And then I can say, and how do you feel? And she can say, well, you taught me to keep a journal of how I was feeling. And I'm seeing a lot less of this that I didn't want and a lot more of this that I do want, right? So chunk it down, because when that client returns, they're coming back because they have been successful and they want to share it with you. And then they're going to want to know what comes next. Is that making sense? If that makes sense, give me a 1 in the chat box. Stumbling block number 2. Thank you, Tracy. You start in the wrong place, and Luz, thank you so much. You start at the wrong place in the program. Does this sound familiar? Because you know for sure that you can't help them correct a leaky gut if their stomach isn't producing enough acid, right? You can't help them lose weight through diet and exercise if their intestinal flora is out of balance. You can't help them if you start in the wrong place. And when we don't know where to start, when we don't really understand what the root of the problem is, we tend to overcompensate. We do a shotgun pattern. Instead of a laser where we're getting it right on, we splatter them with all kinds of bullshot. And that was bullshot, like from a rifle bullet. That wasn't me saying something that I don't like to say. Is it called bullshot? It's not bullshot. What is it called? Buckshot. That's what it is, buckshot. someone would have corrected me. And so, you know, we don't want to do that buckshot pattern from a shotgun blast, right? We want to be lasered in. And when we laser in more closely, we can refine that program more specifically, and we can break the program down into smaller, more precise steps. And another reason that we sometimes give them more than what we should, we start at the wrong place in their program, is because they expect it. There was a study done that even said that medical doctors often give prescriptions because their patients feel like they didn't get their money's worth if they don't walk out of the office with a piece of paper. I've had clients in my office, after I've given them their little bits of homework, say, I can do more than that. And I'll ask them, have you been to a holistic practitioner before? And they'll go, yes. And I'll say, and how much homework did they give? Oh, they gave a total diet overhaul. And how well did you do with that? Did you follow it? Well, no. Well, why not? Because it was too much. Okay, so I'm giving you a couple of points because I want to start at the right place in your program and build this as you get these new habits created. So we start at the right place, and then we don't have to give them too much information. You have to start at the beginning. You have to start at the root, right? You need to create a map for them. You need to create what I call a therapeutic sequence. And that's going to be in the notes that you keep on your client. And it says in appointment 1, we're doing this. In appointment 2, we're going to add this. In appointment 3, we're going to add this. In appointment 4, we're going to talk about this. And you break down that logical sequence that you need to talk with your client about to educate them, to help them get what they need out of their time with you. And then when you are with your client, you refer back to this roadmap. Now, let me tell you how this actually works. So in the margin of my notes, I'll make this little roadmap of appointment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then as I have taught them about appointment 1, and we're just wrapping up the appointment, we book their next appointment. And I say to them, we've talked about this today. This is what I expect to see as you do your homework. In your next appointment, if you're getting the results I expect, we will move on to talk about step number 2. And I give them just like a 5-word, what is step number 2? That does 3 things. Number 1, it tells the client that I've heard them clearly. What we are working on is not usually what they came in for. And I think you'll understand this when I say the symptom is not usually the problem. They may come in because they've got headaches and they want help for their headaches, but you know that the headache is coming because their liver is congested. So you're not going to give them a herbal aspirin substitute. You're going to work on the liver, right? So when you tell them where you're starting and where you're going, they know you've heard them clearly. They know you have a plan. That creates confidence. They like it that you know what you're doing well enough that you know where this goes next. And number 3, it reinforces the idea that it's up to them to do the homework. That if they don't do the homework, they can't get the results. And if they can't get the results, we cannot go on to step number 2 because you won't have the foundation for it. And when they hear that, it clicks. And they do really well with sticking to their programs. So I hope you got that written down because that was an important piece. Stumbling block number 3, a lot of nutrition coaches use computer assessments or electronic biometric doodads. And I've had both of those things over the years and I've ditched them. I found that when we used them, we got different results every time we punched in we had them hold on to the electrodes or every time, and I could run them twice back to back and the results would be so different. It'd be like, well, which one do I want to believe here? And the questionnaires are so subjective that it's not very helpful. Hello, Kimberly. Thank you for joining us on the webinar. Good to see you. And so when I was using these kind of techno gadgets, it got to where my clients would come in and say, are we going to do a scan today? And I soon realized that because the scanners were programmed with a product line, that they could buy a scanner and I could be out of a job. And I also found that the scanners actually got in the way of me developing rapport with my clients. So I ditched the scanners. I want rapport. I have clients who have been with me for years who I know we could do the nutrition and herbal part of what they need in 15 minutes. Yet every time they book an appointment, they say, I would like an hour. I've asked some of them, why would you like an hour? We can do what you need to have done in 15 minutes. And their answer is, you are the only one who listens. We've got rapport. They know they get heard, right? And so I got rid of all of these electronic gadgets. You know, the lengthy questionnaires are no better. The ones that ask about everything you could possibly ask, because you know what? There's no such thing as a one size fits all. And that's the beautiful thing about iridology, is when you understand it, the iridology along with the client's symptoms become your intake questionnaire. And your intake questionnaire then becomes laser focused on your client, not on some template that you got from a class somewhere or that you even created on your own. Now, having said that, you do need an informed consent form. You absolutely do. So don't ever give that up. So what is the strategy here? The strategy is get rid of the gizmos if you're using them and learn how to ask client-centered, laser-focused questions. That is so important because there is more power in a client-focused question than there ever will be in a questionnaire. So in the scope of the dynamic iridology assessment system, we actually practice what questions would you ask with a client that has this set of symptoms and the eye that we're looking at on the screen. What are the kinds of questions you would want answers to help you craft a program, to help you get the information you need to do what's right for this client? Stumbling block number 4, you are not unique. You blend in with the nutrition coaching crowd. And that's a big ouch, right? That really hurts because you spent good time and good money getting your nutrition training or getting your herbal training or your holistic health training. You spent good time and money and you want to help people, or you wouldn't have done that. Am I right? But when you graduated with the exact same training that everybody else in the class had. So unless you got something special, you are just like them. And you're going to have a bit of a fight to get clients and to get known. So it's really important for you to learn how to do this. So I want to know if in any of the training that you've done, if they've actually taught you how to get noticed as a holistic health coach. Have they? I want to see some answers in the chat here. Let me know. Drop me a yes or a no in there. Did they teach you how to get noticed? Did they teach you how to be unique? Dawn says no. Yeah. Anybody else? Did you? No. And I agree. I think it should be a part of the core curriculum. I think the business section of your natural health training should not be get a website, have a Facebook page, and create business cards and a brochure. I think it should be how to get noticed, how to stand out from the crowd. I think that would be a lot more useful. Being unique as a nutritionist or herbalist does not mean having a book. It doesn't mean having menu plans. It means that you've got a unique skill set. And it's good to add extra skills as long as they integrate with what you do, as long as they actually add value to what you do for your client and they don't just cost you money. I mean, how many of you have taken courses? I can't tell you how many I've done and how many thousands of dollars I've spent, where at the end of the course I went, well, that was interesting. I will never use that. Have you done that? I'd like to see if you've done that. Am I the only one? Yeah, some of you have. Yeah, right. And so that's where we make iridology different, because iridology is going to help you integrate everything you know and do it more precisely and concisely. Here's one of the key things that you really need to know. If you've graduated from nutrition school or herbal school or holistic health school or naturopath school, You already know enough nutrition or herbology or other things to actually help the vast majority of the people who are going to come see you. You don't actually need to do extra research if you don't want to. But what you do probably need is to learn how to take the best out of everything you've learned. This piece and this piece and this piece makes the program for person A. That piece, that piece, that piece makes the program for person B, because that's what we're not taught to do in school. You're not taught how to make these laser focused programs, and that's where iridology is going to be a blessing to you. So now you've got some choices. You can keep doing what you're doing, hoping things will magically change, while you continue working unpaid overtime and continue missing time with loved ones so you can keep overwhelming your clients so they won't come back, while you get discouraged and keep thinking, I should just get a real job. Or make some radical changes in what you do and how you think so you can ditch the overtime, so you can have a life that actually includes time with your loved ones or time for yourself, because you give your clients exactly what they need to succeed. So they want to come back again and again, while you think to yourself, I love the career I've created for myself. And this again is exactly where iridology comes into play, specifically the dynamic iridology assessment system, because in this program, I include a truckload of ongoing mentorship to help you really master the art of using iridology in your practice. And constitutional iridology was the turning point for me, and it was figuring out how to use iridology in a clinical setting that really was it, that really turned my business around. And because of that, I get my programs done in my on-time appointments. I don't go overtime. And my clients are able to do the homework, and they're able to come back and say, I did that. I did it 90% good. And this is what I'm feeling. And I'm able to say, that is amazing. Let's build on that. And because of all that, they keep coming back. They want to achieve their health goals. So all of you are familiar with iridology. I recognize your names. I think all of you were with me on the webinar yesterday. Yes, yes, I think. Some of you were, yeah. And so you know a little bit about iridology. And so we're going to do just a quick little case study, not a case study, wash my mouth out with soap, two quick little analyses here before we go into details about the class. Because when you understand iridology, again, it just helps you laser in. Now, this is one of my third generation clients. This is little Violet. She is 2 years old. And I helped her grandma have her mom. So third generation client, that is so fun, I will tell you. Violet comes from a very loving home. Her mom and her dad are amazing. They are amazing together. They are amazing as parents. They are just amazing people. They have fabulous nutrition. Like, I want to live with them. And mom knows enough about herbs and vitamins. We've taught her along the way that she gives Violet little extra top ups of things as she needs them. But Violet had been getting sick a little more often, and she was getting really whiny. So as I looked at little Violet's eyes, didn't she do a good job of sitting there with her eyes wide open so I could get pictures? I was so proud of her. She was such a doll. And what I noticed, and this is her right eye, this is her left eye, and her nose would be sitting right in the middle here. And so I noticed that she has these contraction furrows. And they tell me that all through her life, she is going to be a bit of a drama queen. She is going to make mountains out of molehills, and she is going to internalize stress a lot. That's just starting to kick in, and that's why she's getting whiny. I noticed this little spot here, right here, that says that she's having some problems digesting her carbohydrates. They might be fermenting in her system, which is also not a good thing to have happen. I also noticed the way her collarette, this line coming around here, is sitting. And that also means that she is going to be a bit of an introvert and a little bit sensitive to things. She's going to really take things in. So needing to keep this simple because Violet's not going to swallow capsules, but she is used to taking liquid herbs and good food. So we suggested that that her mom could give her some liquid methylated B vitamins. And I wanted her to introduce some hemp hearts, 2 tablespoons of hemp hearts per day, because hemp hearts have good calcium, good magnesium, great omega-3, and a good complement of B vitamins. And this little girl's favorite food is fruit. Her mom said, we eat really well, but if Violet was given her preference, she would eat like 5 or 6 pieces of fruit a day. She's only 2. So I suggested taking away all the high sugar fruits and replacing it with berries because they tend to be lower sugar, less glycemic reactive, right? When I talked to her mom about a month later, her mom said, "You would not believe the difference." And I said, "Yeah, I probably would, but tell me anyways." And, she knew I was teasing her because we've got a good long relationship. And she said, within a few days of starting this, giving her the hemp hearts, of giving her the methylated Bs, of reducing her sugars, she became very sweet and very pliable. The sweet little girl that we've known all along. I've got my little girl back. And I asked, "Well, how's the immune system doing?" Because she'd been getting sniffles like every month. And she said, "No, she's fine. No sniffles this past month at all." Now, I would not have known exactly what direction to go if I hadn't seen her eyes, because when you see whininess and sniffles, that can be immune, that can be allergies, that can be any number of things. But her eyes suggest that it was that nervous system that needed the support of the B vitamins and some calcium, and that we could do it through foods. And it was pretty quick. When you've got a 2-year-old in the office, as much as you want it to be an hour-long appointment, sometimes you have to work even faster because they can get a little bit antsy for sitting quietly for 2 hours. This is another one of my clients. Her name is Michelle. She's in her mid-30s. And when we took these photos, she was trying to get pregnant, she and her husband. They'd been trying for about a year with no success. And so as I looked at these eyes, and I noticed again, she's got some little bits of contraction froze in here. My first question was not about her menstrual cycles. We got to that eventually. But I asked her, "How do you handle stress?" And she instantly, just answering that question, she said, "Oh, I don't handle it well." I said, "What do you do for a living?" She's a human resource person. So she's in charge of hiring, firing, and supporting the employees when they're having trouble. Not a really good fit for her personality. And so she is constantly stressed out. She has this little spot right here and I said, "Do you know anything about MTHFR?" And she said, "No, what is it?" And I said, "Well, I'm not going to go into huge details. Don't worry about it. I think that you probably have it, and I'm just going to make sure we take care of it for you." Right? And then I asked her about her hormone balance. And because she's got so many of these little flower petals in here that are kind of pointy flower petals, and she's got some in the other eye that are around her, I needed to know what her overall hormone balance is, because this speaks to the entire endocrine system. And she said her periods were good. They were 35 days apart. And I said, "So what's the flow like?" And she said, "Flow?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "It's a smear on the toilet paper. I don't even need a panty liner." That's a problem when you're trying to get pregnant. You might be having a smear every 35 days, but that's not enough of an endometrium to actually get pregnant with, right? And so we spent some time building her endometrium, and she did conceive. She was a very nervous Nellie. Like, I expected anything less? No, because of all of these contraction furrows, every little hiccup and burp, there was an email that just vibrated. Halfway through her pregnancy, I got an email from her that nearly exploded my computer monitor. It was vibrating, literally. And it said, "I've done 23andMe. I have the MTHFR defect. Oh my goodness, will my baby be okay?" Now, MTHFR defect doesn't usually cause a problem for the baby. If you make it to halfway through the pregnancy, you're probably going to be fine. But I was able to say, "You've got nothing to worry about." I suspected that when we started working together. I've had your back since the get-go. Please take a deep breath. And I want you to go, and even though you're still pregnant, I want you to read stories to your baby and go sing to your baby and go dance with your baby, because things are fine. It's okay. Right. And then of course she did have a beautiful baby boy, and she's now coming back to me because they are working on conceiving baby number 2 and have had at least 3 failed IVFs already. And so she wants to go holistically again. All right, so that is really how easy this is. And you will notice that I didn't talk about every little thing in her eyes. I didn't even talk about each one of these markings. I didn't talk about every blood vessel. I lasered in on what her concerns were. She wanted to get pregnant. That meant I needed to understand the endocrine system. I needed to understand her nervous system. Once we got those under control, if there was a need to do anything else, we would deal with it when we got there. But I didn't need to give her a laundry list of possible things that are wrong and possible solutions and all that. Her diet was also very good. I mean, I could easily live with her as well. Her and her husband, not that they would necessarily want me, but I could, because their diet is organic. It's all local and whole and, you know, free range and and just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And so we didn't have a ton of diet work. We did need to increase her fat and her protein. She was a little shy on both of those. All right. Okay, so let's talk about the course now. So the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System. If you're ready to make some radical changes and to learn how to integrate everything you already know about nutrition and herbology to help you get those laser-focused, step-by-step programs created for your clients, this is where you want to be. The goal of the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System is to help holistic practitioners streamline their clinical work, to help them not sacrifice client care. If anything, it actually enhances your ability to give better client care. Not that you give bad client care, but if your client care is already 10 out of 10, what would it look like to be 12 out of 10? That's what we're talking about here, is improving it, because we're creating programs your clients can stick with and can get results with, and creating programs that, because they're getting results, they want to be your client for the long term. This course is the only 20-week, fully mentored constitutional iridology training program for holistic practitioners like you that is designed to help you incorporate what you already know about herbology and or nutrition while you are mastering constitutional iridology and while we are building your confidence as a practitioner. So much of what we learn in this course boils down when we take courses in general, boils down to the standalone courses that we talked about that we will never use again, because it means booking a separate appointment or making our appointments longer. And maybe we're having problems getting clients to pay us what we're worth already. That's a huge self-esteem thing, right? It will be far more useful to you to learn this if you've already got a base in nutrition or herbology and a really good foundation in anatomy and physiology. So I'm not saying that to turn anybody off, but the course is easier and it makes more sense if you know your A&P and if you have a modality, okay? So it is a step-by-step course that teaches constitutional iridology in a logical and sequential manner. And here's what you get. It's taught in 20 live 2-hour-long webinars, and it contains all of the curriculum you need should you decide that you want to certify as an iridologist with the International Iridology Practitioners Association. I specifically keep my classes small because I want to make sure that in that webinar setting, you get all of your questions answered, that you have the time to practice with us, that, you know, all my students get time to answer questions, and we do lots of pop quizzes and analyze lots of eyes and have students contribute. What do you see and what does it mean and what question would you ask? So the classes have to be small. And again, this is all designed so that if you want to certify, you can. You don't have to certify if you don't want to. That's, some people want the certification, some don't, but everybody in the class gets the same curriculum. They get the same support. You will learn so much. Now let's run down quickly what you learn. So lesson 1, we introduce the anatomy of the eye, the history of iridology, and we just do an overview introduction to the whole thing, because we need to know, as we do things like cover the anatomy of the eye, we need to know how those inherent potentials are acquired. If you remember from yesterday, we talked about how the iris is what we inherit, and that's 3 or 4 generations. And so when we understand the anatomy, we understand how that 3 or 4 generations got into our eyeball, right, into that iris. Lessons 2 through 4, we look at the 3 constitutions, and we look at 10 different subtypes of the constitutions. When you understand the constitutions, and yesterday we did an analysis for each one of the constitutions, you understand that how that narrows down what you're going to focus on. And it helps you then to integrate more cleanly what your client wants help with and what their eyes are teaching. It helps you to integrate that really sharply. Lesson 5, we talk about pigment, whether it's the kind of pigment that comes around here. So pigment is any color that is not the base color of the eye. So whether it's this or this sort of orangey wash, whether it's like this brown, or even this brown that's in here is still pigment. In this dark brown eye, maybe it's just this little patch down here. When we understand the pigments, we understand which organs inherently want to be out of balance. When we understand where the pigment is sitting in the iris, it teaches us which organs are going to be affected by the imbalance. So we've got a cause and an effect, and the pigment teaches us about that. And when we understand that, it also gives us that deeper base of knowledge that we need about the client. We look at fiber variations. So we're talking about how the fibers are sitting in the eye. Are they fairly straight and fairly densely packed? Are they loosely woven and they've got little gappy circles in there? Do we have little splits in the fiber structure, or areas that look like they tried to wall off, but they didn't quite make it? Or again, we've got the big slits in this eye, or we've got things like this coming around. That all gives us more information. Each of these is a different layer, an additional layer of information that when you understand it, and you've been practicing for a bit, you don't even stop to think about it. It's just there and you've got it. We talk about the nervous system and pupil shape. You can see here that the pupils are not round. This is really dynamic. It correlates in part to nervous system function. It also correlates to spinal alignment. So when we see that pupils aren't round, it gives us a clue as to how things might be affected, because we know that all the nerves exit the spine and that the nerve feeds and they enter back into the spine. And those nerve feeds, if they are getting pinched by a spine that is subluxed, that subluxation affects the nerve feed and how well it works. And so we look at this, and if you're not a chiropractor or a Dorn therapist or an osteopath, then you're going to be referring your client out to get things taken care of, because where the iris is inherent, the pupil shape is dynamic. So with enough spinal care and correction, this could become round again. We also begin to look at the nutritive zone, which is everything inside this ring. So this teaches us about the integrity of the stomach, the constitutional integrity of the stomach, and the intestinal tract. If you've ever worked with a client who didn't respond well to something and you didn't understand why, this will often give you the clue, because it tells you how well they digest what, how well they assimilate it, and then out here, how well they transport it to the various organs. And then we spend 3 entire lessons talking about this ring itself that comes around here, because it correlates to the tone of the intestinal tract, the integrity of the intestinal tract, and the integrity and the balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. Again, all of this is inherent potential. Then we talk about everything that's outside of the ring, and we divide this into five different zones, zones 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, highly technical names there. But this then teaches us about how the nutrients are circulated through the blood and lymph, how the organs are likely to use them, the muscles and the organs, how the bones will use it, what is the surface blood and lymph doing with it, and how does the skin handle things. Right? That can give you, again, another layer of information. We spend an entire lesson talking about these contraction furrows. We see them in a lot of eyes because we learn 7 different types of contraction furrows, their placement, where their endpoints are, and even their shape gives us more information about how this nervous system works and how this body could be impacted by them, where they might be more prone to feeling pain or having other kinds of nervous system symptoms. Then we talk about syndromes. A syndrome is typically a combination, and we only do 4 syndromes, typically a combination of how the collarette is placed and how other markings are sitting against it. And when we see these particular different setups or scenarios, we know that there are some deep-seated inherent things that need to be protected, that need to be supported in order to prevent a significant problem down the road. And we typically don't work with syndromes on the first appointment because the clients usually aren't coming in for something that's connected to a syndrome. We talk about how eyes change. They do change, but not in the ways that a lot of social media wants you to believe. And then we spend 2 lessons looking at the white of the eye and looking at the blood vessels and different little pigment spots, all kinds of things in the sclera, because where the iris is inherent, the cornea and the sclera are dynamic. Whatever we see in the cornea and the sclera is what this person has earned and is earning right now. You know, by the time we're even halfway through the course, you'll just be amazed at what you have learned and you'll be using it. Your confidence is going to be improved. I said the course is 20 lessons long. The last lesson is a wrap up. It's making sure you know what you need to move forward with whatever needs to be happening here. So 20 live 2-hour webinars. I want you to think about what would it cost to take 5-6 days off work? If you could travel somewhere to take a course, what would that cost for airfare, hotel, food, the time off work itself? You know, you're going to look online, you're going to find other courses, and that's great. What you're going to find is that most of the teachers who are in the US are charging typically anywhere from $1,200 to $2,200 US for the course. And usually it's in 2 parts, so you've got to make 2 trips to get it all. They're great instructors. They're IPA certified for the most part. But still, by the time you add your tuition with your airfare and everything, it adds up, and it's probably going to come out to be about $4,200 to $4,500 US to do this, depending on what your normal wages are. And so that's a lot. That turns out, because my course is priced in Canadian dollars, and many of you are from Canada, that $4,200 to $4,500 works out to be about $5,700 Canadian, which is a bit of a chunk. Now, I found, and you might have found this as well, that when you do one of those intensive classes, it's really hard to learn. By the end of day 2, is your brain mush? And you've got another 4 days to go? Oh my goodness. Do you find that an intensive class is really hard to do when it's 4 or 5 days and it's all new material? If that's you, I want to see number 1 in the comments, because that's exactly how I am. I like to learn in little bits, and I like to apply what I've learned. So the tuition, and thank you, Tracy, the curriculum alone for this course, for my offering, is worth $23.95. I'm going to share with you exactly why. And it's just so important. And do we have any Americans on the call? Anybody from the US? Or is everyone from Canada? If you're from the US, let me know, because then I will make sure I explain the exchange rates and how that all works. You do? Okay, Kimberly, thank you. I'll make sure I explain this for you then. But we need to be aware that my course is priced in Canadian dollars, not US dollars. So for those of you in the States, it's great. And for those of you in Canada, you're breathing a sigh of relief too. Sometimes it's hard to believe that learning this is actually going to be helpful. This is Sharon Bimrose. She's a naturopath from Australia. She'd already learned iridology as a part of her naturopathy program. And she said that my course, and it used to be called Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology, we just changed the name, surpassed her previous training in structure, content delivery, documentation, and support. Pretty impressive considering she already knew iridology. It has reduced her time for creating treatment plans. I love that. She used to give away her own time doing that. Now she doesn't. Karen, we met Karen earlier. She had gone to a regenerative detox course. And in a nutshell, she talked with a lot of people about iridology because they were using iridology in the course. And she said most of the people did not have anywhere near the same experience with their iridology education. They had no support, unanswered questions, and a lot of confusion. Mostly they finished their classes not knowing how to implement what they had learned. And she goes on to say that she's actually graduated 3 years ago now, but that she still feels supported. And I'll tell you why in a minute. She went on to say that learning iridology has helped her to understand the relationship between different organs and organ systems more in depth. And it helps her to create her programs more precisely. And it helps her to understand the right things, the best things to do for her clients. And that is absolutely brilliant. The classes look exactly like what we're doing now, with one huge exception. I encourage all of my students to have their camera and their microphone on so we can have a lot of vocal and visual interaction. Does interaction work for you? Do you like it when you are in a class and you can ask questions when you have them and get answers in real time? Is that something that you find helpful? Or is that a bit of a bother and you'd rather save your questions up to later and ask them all at once? Let me know if it's helpful or not. Just put helpful if you really like to be able to ask questions exactly when you have them. What else do you get here? Well, every class is recorded and you have access. I like it in real time. Excellent, Tracy. Fabulous. Every class is recorded and the recordings are stored for you for playback. So maybe you miss a class, maybe you got distracted, maybe something just needs a review. You have access to the actual class you took. Every lesson is divided into topics and every topic is recorded on its own as well and stored on a student site. You have access to that so that you can review just one individual topic if you need to. So each of these is like getting the class an extra time. It's like you get the class, access to the class in 3 different formats. In university, you have to buy your own textbook, right? Yeah, or rent them now. I guess you rent them online now. And most iridology teachers make you purchase your textbooks. Your textbook for this course, the popular ones that are out there run about $250 Canadian, about $200 American. I've written my own textbook. IPA has approved it. It is a digital textbook, and I include it and the digital iris map that I've created as bonuses for you to download in the class, so you don't need to buy a textbook. It is included as a bonus. Cheat sheets. When I went to high school, it was Cole's Notes. I think it turned into Cliff's Notes, you know, the little synoptic version if you didn't want to read Shakespeare, but you needed to know what it said for the test. And so, not that I ever did that, but I know students who did. So we've taken the entire curriculum, created 45 pages of charts and notes to really squish it down. Kim's laughing at me on that one. And we call that the cheat sheets. And some of my students say the cheat sheets are, once they finish the program, the most valuable asset because they're organized in such a way that you can use them while you're still with a client. Face to face with the client, see a marking, remember what it's called, look it up real quick understanding of possible symptoms, possible questions to ask, possible recommendations to make, and it's right there to remind you. Now, here is where this class has, why all my students say this class has so much value. We have a private Facebook group that is only for my students and alumni. Notice I said alumni because you will never get kicked out of this group. And we have twice a month office hours webinars where students can bring questions they have, can bring cases they're working on, and we discuss them. Think of it like being grand rounds in the hospital, right? Why are these worth $10,000 a piece? Because you never, ever get kicked out. I have paid anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 to be mentored on some business principle, like marketing or writing ad copy or things like that. And at the end of the program, you're kicked out of the program. You have no more access to mentoring. It kind of gets my goat. I don't kick my students out. I know that even after I certified, I had questions. My instructor did not cut me off. And so I believe that I should not cut my students off. If you have questions, there's always support available either in our Facebook group or in the office hours. You never know what you're going to come up against when you're looking at someone's eyes, right? We also record the office hours webinars. They are stored on another site for up to 18 months. So if you presented a case and you couldn't write fast enough to get all the notes down, that's okay. You can go back and watch the recording and take all the notes you need. Mike Knapp is another naturopath. He liked the interactive online platform, and he wanted an experienced teacher and practitioner. He wanted someone who knew how to use this. And he says, you said the fundamentals of iridology could be learned in this format, and that's what was delivered, plus a lot more on how to integrate it directly into current practice. I'm very happy with the training, so thank you. Brilliant. Absolutely love that. Now, here's another little piece that I add in. Most IPA certified instructors, you pay your tuition for the class, you buy your textbooks and your iris maps and all that kind of stuff. And then if you decide you want to certify, they charge you extra to mentor you for the exam. IPA requires 3 levels of exam. The first one is 10 case studies, which I provide. You do. You'll never do a case study again when we finish these. I promise. This is the wrong way to do it, but it's how we prove that you know what you're doing. You write them up, you send them to me, I mark them, then you and I meet for a private one-on-one online, because some of you aren't my next door neighbors. We go over your work, go, way to go, love this, keep doing that, need to tweak this a little, are you sure about this? Right, make sure you're rock solid. If you're not, we give you more case studies. If you are, then I give you exam number 2, which is a case study that IPA gives me to give to you. You do it, you send it back to me, I mark it, we meet one-on-one again, make sure you're rock solid. At that point in time, if you want to certify, you purchase your student membership from IPA. I tell IPA that you are ready for the final exam. Then you go onto their website, you pay your exam fee, register for the exam, and they unlock the exam for you. It's a 4-hour exam. And once you start it, you can't stop it. You've got a 7-day window in which to actually hit that start button and all that kind of stuff. And we'll walk through that when it needs to happen. But so many instructors charge an extra anywhere from $300 to $1,000 to do this exam mentoring. I include it for any of my students, whether they want to certify or not. Some of my students don't want to do case studies. I'm fine with that. Some of them want them, but they don't want to do the final exam. I'm fine with that. Some of them want to do the final exam, so then they have to do this. I'm fine with that. I'm here to support you in your learning, for your learning to look exactly like what you want it to look like. So the total value of everything, if we add this up, is over $31,000. And I'd love to charge that much for this class, and I probably could, and I'd probably sell 3 or 4 seats a year, and that would pay my bills. I'd be happy with that. But I would rather teach more people, because teaching more people is a lot of fun. And I love, love, love helping people with this stuff. And so the tuition is $23.95. Now, $23.95 Canadian. So again, those of you who are in Canada are going, thank goodness that's not American dollars. What this means for you in the US is this. It means that when you register for the class and this goes through your credit card and it goes through the PayPal portal, what you pay is going to convert at about 25% less. So this is going to come out somewhere about $1,800 US. That feels like a saving right up front. Now, what if you don't have $23.95 sitting in your back pocket? There's a payment plan. $549 Canadian on 5 payments. And what that looks like for those of you who are in the States, again, that's about $400 a month for 5 months. Yeah, makes it a whole lot more approachable. This next course starts on January 28th, 5 p.m. Mountain Time. So same night of the week as we are tonight, same time as we started tonight. And again, enrollment, there's a limited number of seats. And if you're ready to enroll, you can hop on over to iridology.education/enroll1, and you can take care of that. But I promised you something, didn't I? We're going to get there in just a second. This is the lovely Michelle Davies. She came to me with level 1, 2, and 3 Iridology from David Pesic and Iridology in Professional Practice from Darko Peirce. And what she said is, this is the most amazing Iridology course I've taken. And most importantly, I taught her how to put it all together to make a proper iris assessment. Also, it was the most accurate stuff she'd learned. So that was cool. This is Stephanie Morgan. She has a master's degree in education. She said she'd been trying to teach herself iridology from books and YouTube videos, and it wasn't working. She told her husband, "This is beyond me. I'm not getting this at all." After she finished the course, she said, Judith offers her students a practical, well-designed curriculum. The pace allows students to retain information. I greatly appreciate the emphasis on putting knowledge into practice. Every interaction and resource is professional and helpful, right? And so that's exactly what we strive for. So the next course, again, starts on January 28th. That registration link, I'm just going to pop that into the message so you don't have to. There we go. That is in the messages. So I'm no different than you. I started my business from scratch. I did it the way I was taught to do it, and it was not the right way. So I've developed this program for you so that you can be successful with your clients. You can be successful in your business, because that's what I wanted for me. And I'm pretty sure that that's what you want as well. So you can hop on over to that registration link again if you're ready to get enrolled. And I want you to remember why you came tonight. Maybe it was because you lacked confidence and you wanted to not have the imposter syndrome. Maybe it's because you're tired of donating hours and you really want to make the most of all of your time, and donating your skills and your expertise is not one of those ways. Maybe it's because you're tired of finding new clients. Maybe you think you should just get a real job, or maybe you just wanted to hear about a really good iridology program. Maybe, right? If you have questions, if you're not really sure, you're thinking, should I, shouldn't I? You're not ready to hit the enroll button, then give me a call, book a call. Let's talk about it. These calls are not meant to strong arm anybody into doing anything that they are not ready to do. They're meant to help us help you decide whether this is the right move for you or not. Right? This is really about nurturing you so that, if this is not the right thing for you, I don't want you in the class. If it is the right thing for you, then, oh my goodness, I really want you in the class, right? So important that it's a good fit for everybody. Here is the gift. You're thinking, that's a gift? It's a piece of paper. And I'm saying it's a gift. Remember how we talked about, okay. Oh, you know why those links didn't show up? Because I think link is not showing up. For the call or for the course registration, Dawn? For the registration, alrighty. I am just not trying to make anybody seasick here, but we're just going to pop back really quick and grab this. I wonder if it's not showing up because it's in blue. Let me try this again. Or maybe I just didn't do the check right on this end. Can you see it? Is it coming through now? It should be on the chat. Yes, it should be on the chat. It's not coming through on your chat. Okay. Is everybody having that problem? Is this not going through on anybody's chat? So if you cannot see the enrollment link on the chat, so not on the Q&A, but on the chat, let me know. You're not seeing this. Oh, yeah. My apologies. Okay, sometimes there, that'll work. I'm a much better iridologist and teacher than I am tech person. Just saying. Okay, there you go, got it. So do you know how much the price is to get the test to get certified? Yes, yes. So you need to purchase a student membership first, which is $85 US. And then when you pass the test, they prorate that and charge you the balance to upgrade to the professional membership. And the exam itself is $200 US. And that's why some of my Canadian students don't want to do it because, you know, 200 US is like 275 Canadian, right? It's a little bit pricey when we've got exchange. But again, you don't have to certify if you don't want to. Or once you've done everything with me and you've bought your student exam or you bought your student membership, you can just keep renewing that student membership for as long as you want, because I will have let them know that you've completed your coursework, that you're ready for the exam, and you can do the exam whenever you feel like it, whenever you want to update. So the price for the exam, can this be used with children? Absolutely, Dawn. Were you with us when I showed the pictures of the 2-year-old? Little Violet? Absolutely, I use this with children all the time. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, as soon as, you know, when they're teensy weensy and I can't get eye photos, I just hold them and I take them over by a window where we've got natural light and I look at their eyes and see what I can see without magnification. Absolutely. And the price for the exam is you need to have your IPA student membership, which is 85 US. And then you have your exam fee, which is 200 US. When you pass the exam, then you have to upgrade your student membership to a professional membership. So they're going to charge you the difference between the student and the professional, which I think is about another $80 or $90. You know, so that's the membership part of it. But again, probably 70% of my students don't certify. Right? So certification is not critical. Certification does not mean you cannot practice. A lot of iridologists practice without certification. So it depends on what's important to you, right? Okay, excellent. So you've got the link. Did anybody need the phone call link if you wanted to talk to me about the course? If you need the phone call link, just give me a message there that says phone call, and I will make sure I repost that. So this template, which is, I'm going to post this link. I'm going to do it right. I'm sending the link for this right now. Yeah. There you go. This is going to help you chunk things down. Where you see the numbers here, we've got 2 rows for appointment 1, 2 rows for appointment 2, 2 rows for appointment 3, appointment 4, appointment 5, and so on. Remember, I said that you need to create a roadmap. So in that first appointment, you're going to, in pencil, put down what do you want to do, what do you want to work on in appointment 1, what's going to be appointment 2, 3, 4, outline at least 4 appointments worth. Then if you've got iridology in your belt, you can put down in here, what was the iris marker that is giving you the information you need to support your decisions? Was it contraction furrows? Was it a lacuna? Was it a pigment? What was it? Was it something in the sclera? Then you've got a little tiny bit of room here to write some dietary recommendations, little tiny bit of room for some supplements, and a little tiny bit of room for your lifestyle actions. If you have to write in microscopic, tiny, small writing to get what you need to in here, you're giving too much information and too much homework. You should be able to write in just a normal average size of writing and be able to put in what you need here. And that will be all you give them. And then you know you haven't overloaded them. Right when they come back in, then you're going to ask them how they do with the homework, how are they feeling, and are you ready to move on to part number 2 that you had outlined? And this is for your eyes only. You're not giving this to your clients. This is for your eyes only. This is your thinking. This is your roadmap. And you're keeping this first column in pencil because maybe after session 1, they did their homework and they got such amazing results that you're going to skip what you had thought you were doing for session 2 and session 3 because their body has fast forwarded and they're ready to roll, right? And so you can then erase what you wrote there and reconfigure this roadmap, but at least you did some initial planning. This is to help you get things in place. And Luz is apologizing that she got disconnected and she's back on. I'm just glad you're back, Luz. Thank you. I hope I'm saying your name right. And so I'm glad you're back and you'll get the recording of this. So if you kind of remember where you kicked out and where you kicked in, you can review. Questions and answers. You know, because people always, there's always other things that they need to know before they invest $23.95, right? Even in a fabulous course. I live in a time zone that puts this class at midnight where I live. Can I still sign up for this course and be successful? Oh my goodness, can you ever? This last go round, we had a student in Slovenia. The class would have literally been at 3 a.m. I think it was 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. for her. So she did the course by listening to all the recordings, asking questions on Facebook. And because our office hours, we do one a month at 12 noon and one a month at 4 p.m., she was able to make the ones that we hold at 12 noon. So she came to those to get more of her questions answered. So your time zone doesn't matter. With everything being recorded, it's there for you. How long will it take you to go through the course? Well, we have 20 classes, 1 a week, 20 weeks to do the course material. And then if you opt to do the cases, exam 1 and exam 2, a little time more than that. Now, having said that, I put your feet to the fire here. You have to finish your case studies within 10 months of completing your coursework. Why do I say that? My experience has been that if students drag things out and they don't get those case studies done within 10 months, they're not going to get them done. So I put that deadline on, get those case studies done if you're going to do them, and let's get on with the program. How much time per week do you need to set aside? Well, class is about 2 hours. Then you need some time for studying and for review and for looking at people's eyes. And I know right now you might only be able to look at your own eyes in the mirror and the people you live with, but that's okay. That counts as practice. So I like my students to make sure they've got about a total of 5 hours a week, 2 for the class and 3 for practice and review. I'm going to be out of town. Will I fall behind? No, because everything's recorded. Just listen to the recordings. And if you're somewhere where the internet works and you can take 2 hours to actually just join class from wherever wonderful place you are, there you go. Oh, Dawn, that's a great question. We're going to talk about special equipment in just a moment, okay? Because that's a really good question that comes up every time. How do I know if this course is right for me? Well, if you're a naturopath or a herbalist or a nutrition coach, and you want a faster, easier, more precise way of assessing your client's needs, then this is probably for you. When will I know enough to start using what I learn? I want you to start using what you learn by the end of lesson 2, because in lesson 2, we're looking at eyes, we're learning the 3 constitutions, and I want you to be practicing everything, every step of the way. Don't wait till the end, because if you wait till the end, it's going to be overwhelming. Practice as we go. What else do I need to buy for this course? Dawn, here's your answer. Here's your answer. Now, let me just, I'm going to duck away from the camera for just a second to get something out. Many of you have seen things like this online. Do not, I repeat, please do not go and spend thousands of dollars on a professional iridology setup until at least you have finished the course and decided if you love this or not. Where you want to start is a lighted magnifying glass that has maybe a 5x and maybe an 8x or a 10x magnifier on it. This has interchangeable lenses, which is really cool. Got this on Amazon, which is not my favorite place to shop, but I couldn't find them anywhere else. The other thing that you want alongside this is a good pen light. The reason for that is sometimes when you're looking at someone's eye and you've got the little light turned on, that light is locked in. It's going to only focus in one place in your field of vision. But sometimes you want to see, can I see something different if the light hits the eye in a different place? So a pen light and a lighted magnifier might cost you 50 bucks Canadian. Not very much at all. That is what you need for the class. And this is the equipment. This is actually, oh, I don't have it here anymore. This is the pen light I started with 40 years ago. I still use it in my clinic. If I just need to take a quick peek, I've got photos of their eyes. Maybe I want to look at their sclera one more time. Or maybe I'm not sure that my computer has reproduced the color quite right. Then I'm just going to go over to them with my little this and have a quick look and see what color their eyes really are. Or I'm going to look and see, has that blood vessel in the sclera changed? Yep, it has. Good for us. So this is what I want you to start with. And actually, when you register for the class, I will very quickly give you access to the Facebook group. And I always post examples on the Facebook group for on the Facebook page for my students to see examples of things that would work really well. So it's not a huge outlay. You'll find online things called iriscopes that range in price from typically about $97 to about $300. Please don't buy one. Please don't buy one. There's all kinds of reasons why they are really not good for a professional, for someone who wants to do this professionally. And we'll talk about that why in lesson, I want to say it's like about lesson 20. Right, so don't buy it. All you need is what I've shown you here. If you don't like it, can you get a refund? This is a professional course. You have access to these materials for the lifetime of the course, for as long as I'm teaching the course. So that's years, I hope. I hope I'm around for years. So I don't offer refunds because you can always come back, and even if you had to drop out of the program, you can come back and finish it on your own and ask questions in the Facebook group and come to office hours. So you're never left alone. Even if something came up that stopped you from finishing, or, you know, if you decide, well, this isn't for me right now, it might be for you later on. So you retain access. And for that reason, I don't give refunds. There we go. So as we look at this, I can't remember what you said. If I chose to write the exam, do you support us through that? I do. If you do the exam, I will mentor you for the exam up until 10 months after you finish your classes. So that mentoring is getting your case studies done and spending a little extra time with you if you need it to mentor you and tutor you. After that 10 months after the end of your classes, you're going to be on your own, because then I've got more students coming through who need me as well. And I can't be going back and retrieving students along the way. And that's another reason why I push you to get it done in the 10 months, because what I've seen is I've got a lot of students who said, oh, well, you know, I've done my case studies, I'll do the exam next year. And we're 3 or 4 years later and they still haven't done the exam. Can you please put the link for the call? Absolutely. I can put the link for the call. There we go. There is the link for the call for you, Dawn. Excellent. So again, we limit this to no more than 10 students in the class. And I know there's a few people enrolling now that I've been talking to during the day. So I don't know where we're at in the enrollment process and how many have actually sent money. I'll be checking my email when we're done here. And so, you know, if you need some more clarification, please schedule a call with me. If you're ready to rock this and make it happen, then hop on that link, iridology.education, enroll one, and let's get you enrolled and get you welcomed into the Facebook group and give you access to the welcome materials that are in your student site. And let's get you all set up to join us on January 28th. Can I, Dawn, absolutely. You can certainly book a client session to come in and see me or to do it online. And the email address, yes. There's my email address. And Dawn, if you just take that email address and send me an email, I'll send you the appointment booking link. And yeah, and we'll get something set up for you there as well. Okay. Are there any other questions that I can help you with? Dawn says, awesome, thanks. Fabulous, good to have you here. Excellent, excellent. And all right, if there's no other questions, I look forward to seeing you all in class. I hope that you're going to get registered. And excuse me. And again, that starts on the 28th. Registration is first come, first serve. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Take good care and have a good evening. Bye for now.